The Los Angeles Chargers have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, so we're going to examine how we got here, what big decisions are coming, and why Chargers fans should have some hope for the future today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Joe. Probably going to be an unpleasant conversation for the early part of it because we have to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers and what went wrong as we debrief this. Can you call it a failed season? I think with expectations for the Chargers, it should be called a failed season. And there have been teams that we've done this exercise for that I don't think would qualify as that. And we alluded to the Giants be the first team that we did this exercise with, that made the playoffs last year, so you could argue it was a surprise that they were here. It is a surprise we were doing this about the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be this way, right? But we knew it was an important year with Brandon Staley, kind of some questionable tactics over his first couple of seasons. They get to the playoffs. They blow the game, right, to the Jaguars, right? The big comeback for Jacksonville in the playoffs. You kind of felt like you can maybe get healthy in some spots, replace your offensive coordinator with Kellen Moore, and that be enough. But as we get into this conversation and ask ourselves the question of how we got here and what went wrong, I think it starts with the offseason. This was a team that was in the playoffs, that has a star quarterback. And what did they do in the offseason? Their most significant addition was Kendricks, a linebacker. They drafted Quentin Johnston in the first round, which is a player I did not grade in the first round, that I thought was not the type of receiver that they needed to add to the mix. What do they have to show from this draft class? I know Tuli Tuipulotu looks like a nice player on the second round, but there's not a lot of production from the draft class. There's not a lot that you were able to add. And I don't know that getting Kellen Moore and counting on getting healthy in some spots was going to be your ticket to improving.
So you mentioned Tuli Tuipulotu. I think that's the silver lining of the offseason. But think about how much of this group was brought back, right? And be it the secondary with Derwin James, J.C. Jackson coming into year two. You had Michael Davis, who they brought back on a new contract. Asante Samuel, Alohi Gilman. Their one departure, Nasir Adderley retired, right?
Well, Drew Tranquill, right? Drew Tranquill
right?
was.
Just in the secondary.
Yeah.
And then you had Drew Tranquill who left. But you had players, be it, Kenneth Murray. You bring in Eric Kendricks, who I think is an upgrade over, and played in a similar system with Ed Donatel in Minnesota the year prior. So the point that I want to make, you had a defensive-minded coach, and your first 3 games of the season, you gave up more than 475 yards offense twice, gave 36, 27, and 24 points. The identity of your team with your head coach was supposed to be defensive background. And yet the metrics across his 3 years or 2 years and change are 29th, 20th, and 23rd in yards, 29th, 21st, and 26th in scoring defense.
It's not good.
So you take all that, and then you take the game theory application, and I say this with all due respect, like objectively, what went wrong with the Chargers is Brandon Staley objectively is a bad NFL head coach right now. He's young, and maybe he'll go be an assistant somewhere else, and he got that job way early and gain more experience, and maybe he'll get another opportunity. But if he does, he's going to have to do things a lot differently, and he's going to have to actually tangibly back up. But you brought all those guys back on the defensive side of the ball. Year 3 of the system. You get 36 points dropped on your head and 500 yards the first game you play? And it was like that all year. Detroit ran through them like nobody's business. 41 points and 500-something yards offense. More than 2 games with a defensive-minded head coach with the entire unit back. And as you said, we'll get healthy. They didn't stay healthy, but they got healthy at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, defense stinks, right? That's not great for a defensive-minded head coach year 3 with the investments that they made and really building it in the way that he wanted it to be built. Another reason is the offensive line regression. Yeah, I think it didn't meet the standard they were hoping for. I think you saw Trey Pipkins get paid and Trey Pipkins turn in. I think Jamari Salyer at right guard didn't take the step a lot of people were hoping in year 2. I don't think Zion Johnson at left guard took the step a lot of people were hoping for in year 2. I think Rashawn Slater came back and was a Pro Bowl tackle. But then Corey Linsley missed a bunch of time. Your veteran center there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that offensive line was quite what they were expecting it to be. And that obviously hurts. And of course, your injuries are bad as well. Mike Williams, what did he play in 3 games? That's a $20 million a year receiver. Corey Linsley at center, big time injury. Joey Bosa battled injuries all season. Of course, Justin Herbert missing the final stretch of games. Keenan Allen, of course, late in the season. So your defense was bad. Your offensive line regressed, and you had significant injuries to your impact players. And I don't think you position yourself that well to take a step with what you did in the offseason. So a lot of bad decisions along the way. And that's how you get a fired coach in week 16. And you're resetting in some ways after a playoff year and having a star quarterback.
So I know one of our favorite pastimes on this show is really railing against a former GM in the AFC South, whose name we will not mention on this show. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is it fair to look at the assembly of this group for the Chargers and start to hold some similar disdain for what this group, what the strengths and weaknesses of this group was, how some of them were never addressed, and then some of the contracts that have been given out in the process?
No question about it. And I think it stems further than right now. One of my big critiques for Tom Telesco was not getting it right in the twilight of Phillip Rivers' run as the quarterback. Just like, how often were we going to talk about the offensive line and us not get better there? Right. And so I think that's huge. And I think you can extend the same thing with the Chargers. How often were we going to talk about interior defensive line? How often were we going to talk about weapons in the passing game? Right. It never got there. So yeah, I think Tom Telesco deserves a lot of blame for this team, both with what he had with Justin Herbert and of course with Phillip Rivers, and not being able to get over the hump, and it's because he didn't pull the right strings. So yeah, I think that's a great call out.
The last thing that I would talk about as far as things that went wrong in this season was prior to this year, there had not been a better touchdown machine in football than Austin Ekeler.
Man, yeah, he was rough this year.
The worst thing that could have possibly happened to Austin Ekeler was tweaking his ankle in week 1, because it held him out for a time. And then beyond that, he played against the Dolphins in week 1, and then he didn't play again until October 16th. So you miss a bunch of time. And then when he came back, he looked like he ran a 4.8. Like, he just was not himself. Yeah. The explosiveness really fell off. And he had 20 touches for 164 yards and a touchdown against the Dolphins in week 1. So, like, it's hard to say, but, like, whether it was the ankle or whether it's an aging running back who's going to be 29 years old and has gotten a lot of run the last couple of years, 311 touches last season. I guess that's one thing that the Chargers did right, was not acquiescing the contract request of Austin Ekeler.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have traded him and sold high, but you were expecting to compete this year. I never in a million years would have advocated for you to do that.
Right.
But Ekeler becoming a player that is averaging 3.7 yards per carry and has his touchdowns are cut in 1/3, and he missed a month and a half to start the season after week 1, really, and then being back and being a shell of himself is another contributing factor, because you always at least had that to fall back on offensively.
Mhm.
when the passing got when Mike Williams got hurt and Keenan Allen had a soft tissue issue. You didn't have that this year, and I think it shows big time. And now we're down the stretch, and we're getting Isaiah Spiller run, and we're getting Josh Kelly run, and it's just this just looks like a very unceremonious end to the Austin Ekeler run in LA with the Chargers.
Yeah, the Austin Ekeler and the Tony Pollard role in the Kellen Moore offense was supposed to be different, but it wasn't, unfortunately. All right, the Chargers have some big decisions to make. Big decisions. We're going to break them all down here in just a moment, so stick with us. But when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring's easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now and might not have the time or resources to hire. Well, thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy, and they also just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
First thing we got to do is hire a coach and a GM.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Certainly leaning into an offensive-minded coach, right?
Yeah, I think you want to find that guy that you can marry to Justin Herbert and enjoy the next decade of dominant football together with. That's got to be the thought process. So I think you need to do that. And candidates will be interesting. The Harbaugh's the hot name there.
Right.
Ben Johnson feels like the dream, right, with kind of what he has unlocked with Jared Goff in the vertical passing game, and you feel like there's even more with Justin Herbert. So, like, something like that's probably what you need to do here. I wouldn't be talking about the Mike McDaniels or Mike McDonald's, or the Lou Anarumos or the Brian Flores's. I'd want one of these bright young offensive minds to link with Justin Herbert.
So, with that in mind, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, there is not a team that has bigger non-expiring contract decisions to make this offseason than the LA Chargers.
It's overwhelming.
I mean, it's from a salary cap figure, Bosa, Mack, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. These are all like $30 million plus a year salary cap figures. And there's some work that you can do. Derwin James, almost 20. Corey Linsley, 14. Justin Herbert, I mean, that's an easy one. You max restructure that, right? You can save yourself the $4 million or whatever it is. But what are we doing with these aging, expiring? Who are you keeping? Who can you trade? I think that's where it starts, right? It's like, who's tradable with their current contract situation? Never mind the expiring contract list, which we can get into after that.
So let's acknowledge that they're $35 million in the hole to start the offseason, right? So they've got to create cap space to be able to operate. But I'm with you, dude. Like, I have in my notes, something has to happen with Khalil Mack. Something has to happen with Keenan Allen. Something has to happen with Mike Williams. These are cap hits, Kyle, that are north of $32 million each. $38.5 million with Mack, $34.7 from Keenan Allen, $32.46 from Mike Williams. We can't roll with that. And they can cut and save, like, if you cut those $23 million out of Mack, you save $23 million out of Keenan Allen, you save $20 million out of Mike Williams. There's dead cap, of course, but like, you got to do something here. So whether that's
probably do all of that, or you probably move on from all of those players.
Sure, but do you ask yourself some questions with maybe? I mean, here's what makes it hard. Khalil Mack and Keenan Allen are coming off, crazy good seasons.
Right. So can you trade either one? Is the question.
Can you extend them? Is that a conversation? Can you add a year to their deal and spread out some of that money? Spread out the money.
How old are these? Khalil Mack's going to be 34 in 2020.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, dude. I get it. But I'm saying, like, we're talking about the options are on the table, and that's got to be part of their thought process. Like, one of the levers they can pull is they can extend them, keep them, spread out the cap hits. They could trade them. They could cut these players, but they have to do something.
So Keenan Allen is due $18.1 million in 2024 on a so it'd be 1 year, $18 million. Well, and he's got a $5 million roster bonus due on the 5th day of the league year. So somebody would be bringing that on too. So never mind. It's 23.1. Is somebody going to trade for Keenan Allen, 32-year-old Keenan Allen on a 1 year deal?
Are you going to keep him for a $35 million cap hit? You can't do that.
Right. So you cut him. I'm saying you can't trade. I don't think anybody's going to trade for that contract, right?
No chance.
And you can't justify keeping Keenan. Maybe you extend. Yeah, I think.
All right, here we go.
You've talked me into extending Keenan Allen, and then you put some void years on the back end of it, and then that way you don't have to go all the way back to square one because I'm cutting Mike Williams. Period.
Oh yeah, that's an
you
easy
save
one.
the $20 million.
He's $30 million. He's hurt all the time. Yeah, like goodbye.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move on from Mike Williams. We'll keep Keenan Allen, extend it, kick that money out. Right?
I think so.
We'll buy ourselves a runway. Khalil Mack, the financials. 2024, $17.5 million in base salary, and then a $5.5 million roster bonus that is due the 3rd day of the league calendar year in 2024. So he's due over $23 million in cash on a 1-year deal. Would somebody trade for that? Would somebody trade for that and put another year on the back end of it and convert it all to signing bonus? And I think you could trade Khalil. I think there's enough there that you could justify trading Khalil Mack.
And what you'd have to do is this isn't the other Khalil Mack trades that have happened.
Right.
You're asking
recalibrate your expectations on what you're getting.
Yeah, you're not
talking about maybe a late day 2, early day 3 pick.
Right. And I know he has 17 sacks or whatever this year. It's a crazy amount of pressure. He's having a great season. But the contract and the age here doesn't speak to a lot of value by putting him on the trade block.
What about Bosa?
Something has to happen there as well. You can restructure and free up $9 million. Same thing with Derwin. You can restructure there and get 8.7. Same thing with Corey Linsley. You can restructure there and get 6.8.
I guess the hard thing with that, dude, is they restructured Bosa's contract this year. They've restructured Allen. I don't think Mack has had more than a minimum value restructured contract since he's been in LA. So it's they've been doing this, and that's how they're in this spot. At some point, you have to transition, right?
Well, but they also need to get cap space. They're 35 in the hole. And so a combination of everything we've talked about has to happen here. You got to be in the good when it comes to cap space. And they're in trouble.
Are we selling high on Mack and moving on from Mike Williams? And those are the 2 departures. If you had to pick.
Oh yeah. I'm also going to cut Morgan Fox. I'm going to cut Eric Kendricks. That's going to free up another $11 million with those 2 moves.
Kind of middle-class players on your roster. I mean, Kendricks is $6.5 million that you can open up. What about Corey Linsley?
You can restructure and save 7. What's the cut implications?
If you cut him, you'd save 9.
So yeah, he's the 33-year-old center, dude.
And got hurt.
Yeah,
and he got hurt in 2022 as well, right?
He's had some stuff. He's a good player, but
he's an outstanding center.
So that is part of the deal here. We got expiring
we didn't even get into expiring contracts.
Expiring contracts. Shall we?
Okay. So expiring contracts for 2024.
I think there's one big one. One big one.
Michael Davis, corner. Austin Johnson, defensive tackle. Austin Ekeler, running back. Gerald Everett, tight end. Kenneth Murray, linebacker, first-round pick. Easton Stick, backup quarterback. Jalen Guyton, Nick Williams, Will Clapp, Joshua Kelly, Tanner Muse, Isang Bassi, Jalen Hawkins, Alohi Gilman.
That's the big one.
And that's the big one. And I'd probably bring him back. He's been good. And that makes me very happy because I was devastated when he ran a 4.6 at the combine. He's
a baller. He's a baller. He can his tackling downhill ability is really good. Split zones. He's had some ball production. I know he picked off Josh Allen last week. I think he's a quality starting center or starting safety. That's probably, I don't know if he's a 14, 15 million, but I offer him a $7-8 million a year contract, and I don't think twice about it.
And you know what? What's weird is the safety market last year was, aside of Jesse Bates, kind of mild. If you proactively negotiate with him, he's in the 4th year of a deal. He's taken half of his snaps as a defensive player this year.
Yeah.
Like, you might even be able to get him for better than that.
3 years, 15, something like that.
Yeah. And 5 or 6 was the number that I had in my head that, like, I'd be angling to try to get to.
Yeah. I'd want him back. I don't want him back for sure.
And that's a very easily digestible contract to add to the mix when we're talking about the players that you can move on from. And
are you sweating about any of these other guys?
Davis, Johnson, Ekeler. Everett would be a nice piece to have back. He's an effective, like, complementary piece of your offense. Jalen Guyton's got a little something to him. I'd want him back, but that's not a big contract. Like, that should be super easy to get done. No, I mean, they've got some restricted free agents that they could exercise, and I would probably do that with all of them just because they're going to need the low financial guys on the roster. Kenneth Murray, I'm let walk. At this point, I'm probably letting Mike Davis walk. Austin Johnson, I'm going to let walk. Go right down the list.
Right. There's not a whole lot I'm stressed about.
So my priorities would be getting Alohi Gilman under contract, exercise all your restricted free agents, and then if you can get a reasonable price for Gerald Everett, I'd bring him back as well.
See it the same way. Their 5th-year option is an easy one. Rashawn Slater, you're picking that up, right? Yep. $19.7 million.
Slam dunk.
Yep, you'll pick that one up easy. All right, we're going to get optimistic here the rest of the way, so stick with us. The Levy Grail component of our show is coming up next, but as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a ton of different things that you can bet on, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Folks, I am obsessed with DoorDash. The convenience is unmatched. We're all busy people. We're all looking for a little extra time. Well, DoorDash gives that to you because they'll bring you groceries right to your front door. They'll bring you food from your favorite local restaurants right to your front door. If you need to go to the pharmacy, they'll do that for you. So check it out. I love this, man. Like, another thing that I love about DoorDash is in my house, me and my wife, we don't always agree on what we want for dinner. And so with DoorDash, she can get food from the Mexican restaurant. I can get food if I want Chinese or what. You know what I mean? It's nice to be able to have those options while not having to cook for yourself. So check it out. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more in your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. Again, that's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply.
Can I, before we do the Levy Grill, there was something I meant to do on Takes, and it didn't do it. And I'd like to do it right now.
All right.
How much did you see of the Pop-Tart Bowl? And I don't mean the game. I mean the Pop-Tart mascot.
0. I saw the logo, and I saw a tweet saying that you wanted to have this mascot or something from you.
So they have a mascot that was an edible Pop-Tart. And then after the game, they had a big, supersized Pop-Tart that the mascot stood up on top of, and they pulled him down into the toaster, and then out of the bottom, it spit out a toasted version of the toaster, and the winning team got to eat the mascot.
Really?
And it's the highlight of bowl season because I have not watched an ounce of the bowl games otherwise. But I saw this courtesy of social media happening, and like I am all about the Pop-Tart mascot.
Yo, so this is huge because we have the Cheez-It Bowl and we have other ones, right? Like, step up your game.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's incredible.
That seems like an amazing moment that I'm going to, as soon as we're done here, go back and research. I mean, you think about, the Idaho Potato Bowl, throwing around the potatoes. Like,
no,
that's the stuff. Here. That's the stuff, though. You know what I mean? I like it. I don't need to watch mayonnaise being dropped on top of people, though. Like, that's
Duke's
like,
Mayo Bowl, you're not about.
Bro, that's straight up repulsive. And that happens here in Charlotte. So that's tough for me to take. It's tough, man. Tough. Shall we, Levy Grail?
Fight
on, my men. I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lay me down and bleed a while, and I'll rise and fight again. The poem recited by Bills head coach Marv Levy to the Buffalo Bills after they continue to lose Super Bowls, a rallying cry to galvanize the troops to get back up and compete. That's what we're going to do here as it relates to the Los Angeles Chargers. And Kyle, I think the opening talking point is the most easy opening talking point we are ever going to have at Levy Grail. Your quarterback is Justin Herbert. You got one of the special ones, right? One of the unicorns out there. You have him, and he's young. And so for all the resets that are happening, you can be nervous about who's going to be starting that middle linebacker or who the slot receiver is going to be, or if you're going to get a new tight end. Justin Herbert's your quarterback, folks. And that's a quarterback that a high percentage of the NFL would love to have.
Yeah, it's going to make the sales pitch for the job pretty straightforward, right? It's the hardest part about having a successful team is having that position settled and concrete. And the Chargers have that. So I think that gives them a leg up in all of the coaching hirings versus guys that have young quarterbacks that were invested in, but there's still an unknown element of those quarterbacks. I think that's a little bit or a lot more tame with the Chargers. I would also say there's some nucleus of players in general on both sides of the ball that I think are really likable talent, with Rashawn Slater, who you just mentioned, having a fifth-year option that's eligible to be exercised for. That's a cornerstone of an offensive line. And Justin Herbert, as you said. And then Asante Samuel Jr., I think is a very viable cornerstone, whether he's going to play in the slot or he's going to play outside, that you have to work with as well. So I think those young players give a really nice starting point for both sides of the ball when you ultimately make whatever decision you're going to make on Alohi Gilman. And if you decide to keep Khalil Mack because you want to ride the hot hand, like there's pieces to work with. Now, I think maybe the expectation or the assessment of the roster this year versus last year or at the beginning of the year, if we had to go back and reclassify a lot of players on the Chargers, I think it becomes a lot more cut and dry that it's not a complete roster, but that makes the cornerstone players that are on the roster that much more attractive because you can work with them, and they're all young players that are either on rookie contracts or on long-term deals that you can kind of serve as your foundation.
You mentioned the dynamics of how attractive the opportunity is going to be really for any GM and head coach because of the Justin Herbert factor. But I mean, how about also LA, SoFi Stadium? The new facility looks beautiful. I mean, who wouldn't want to go and be part of that? So I think that matters. But also the other side of this, if I'm going to find optimism for Chargers fans, Brandon Staley's gone. Like that had to be tough to kind of go through that and just listen to the way he talks. And like, even towards the end there, it was like very defensive and, why should you continue to be the coach? He's like, because I know what I put into it. Well, do results not matter, buddy? Like, I mean, congratulations on working hard, but let's not confuse effort with results. And I think that you should be excited to have a new head coach that's not going to have those backbreaking decisions all the time that, can't get out of his own way. And I think that's reason to be optimistic as well. I think it was an obvious decision that they had to make to move on. And I think getting a new head coach would make me happy if I were a Chargers fan.
Yeah, for sure. And a fresh start, right? I mean, Telesco had been there for a decade.
Yeah.
So from top down, you get a new crack at football operations in its totality. And as it became more apparent this year, as you look at this roster and say, we kind of played this thing out a little bit, it's time for something new. The fact that they had the vindication to embrace something new and wipe both of those positions so that they can get fresh minds in there to work with their foundation, I think is cause for excitement for Chargers fans too.
And the Chargers are not brimming with draft capital, but they have higher picks than maybe we anticipated them having. Right now, they're scheduled to pick 6, 37, 71, and 106 with their first 4 selections. And so you're in that, the famous Brandon Beane quote, I don't want to suck bad enough to get Jamar Chase. Well, folks, you have the number 6 pick to go with Justin Herbert, and you take care of some business here, lose a couple games to close out the year, you're going to be in that top 5 range. And, maybe there's a special talent that you can get that is unexpected when you have a quarterback like a Justin Herbert.
Imagine if they got Harrison.
Brother. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, there's so much conversation about like the Chiefs. The Chiefs have to give everything they have to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, what if you only had to go from like 6 to 3? What did that cost the Colts for a quarterback for the Jets and the Colts? That cost 3 second-round picks.
Yep.
You can have 3 second-round picks right now. I can get Marvin Harrison Jr. So they're going to have a nice opportunity with some of their young players that they're going to add.
And the Chargers finish with the Broncos and the Chiefs as their last 2 games, right?
Yeah.
So we do live in a world where they can get to 5-12. New England plays the Jets. Does New England beat the Jets?
Yes. With everything. I was talking to Mike Debate about this. Mike said, Bill might call Tom Brady out of retirement to beat the Jets in what potentially is his last game as the head coach of the New England Patriots. That's going to happen.
So, okay, now you're 5. You're tied with the Giants. The Giants have the Rams and the Eagles. Maybe not feeling good about stealing either one of those. Washington has San Francisco and Dallas.
Yikes.
The strength of schedule of the Chargers and the Giants is interesting, and the Giants play 2 teams that are Rams and Philadelphia playoff teams, so maybe tiebreakers can break your way there. I think maybe your ceiling is 5, but they got to be hoping that Arizona stays at 2. If they wanted to go get Marvin Harrison, you go from 5 to 2 and get that done if you wanted to. Now, I think they have plenty of needs, but at least it's a storyline in the conversation and an option a way out for them.
Malik Neighbors at 6 don't sound too bad to me.
Yeah, it's not bad either.
So
not bad either.
Get something there for sure.
That is going to do it for us, Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great weekend. Enjoy week 17 of the NFL season, and we will be back again Monday to break down all of the action.